Ladies and gentlemen, our great American comeback begins when we send Joe Biden back to his basement in Delaware. Spends a lot of time on vacation as it is as president. We might as well make it permanent, and we will get that done. It's wonderful to be here. My wife, Casey's going to come up and say a few words in a few minutes. She is a graduate of the College of Charleston down in the Low Country. And we always love to be back here in South Carolina. I can tell you, you saw the other day, I guess it was yesterday, the president was at an event and had a little fall on the stage there. And look, it happens, not something that you want to see for anybody, but unfortunately, I think that was kind of a metaphor for how our country is going right now. Because we seem to be stubbing our toe, falling down, not doing things the right way. The country's clearly going in the wrong direction. Look at what's happening with the southern border. Look what's happening with inflation and all the economic squeeze we see. Look what's happening with Biden trying to kneecap our ability to produce our own energy. Look at this bureaucracy that seems like it's weaponized against people like us. If Hunter were a Republican, he would have been in jail by now, and we all know that that's the truth. Look at American cities overrun with crime. Look at the woke mind virus infecting all these institutions in our society. Look at what we experienced for the last 3+ years with medical mandates and lockdowns instituted in some cases by the federal government. And of course, coming off Memorial Day weekend, we remember the 13 service members that we lost in Afghanistan due to the dereliction of duty of Joe Biden as Commander-in-Chief. And the reason we're in this rut is because we have an entrenched political class that is pursuing their own interests, not your interests and not the nation's interests. 5 of the 7 wealthiest counties in this country are suburbs of Washington, D.C. How does that happen? Washington's not producing very much other than mountains of debt and a lot of hot air, and yet you have this wealth that's there near our nation's capital. It's because it's the politically connected that benefit. And it seems like if you're just out in the rest of the country playing by the rules, working hard, they're stacking the deck against you more and more. I grew up a blue-collar kid. My mom was a nurse. My father worked for the Nielsen television ratings company. Back then, they would actually have to install a device on the family's cable box to be able to get the ratings. It was a different time, so he did that. And I was basically taught, you're entitled to nothing. You got to go earn your way in this world. You got to work hard. And so that's what I did. I started working as a teenager. I worked my way all through college and stuff to get degrees, to try to put myself in a position to do something with my life. But I only did that because I just believe that in America, if you work hard and you make the most of your God-given talents, there's going to be doors open for you. I believe that very strongly then. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't believe that. But I wonder how many people believe that for young people now looking forward. And if we lose that as a country, then we've lost what's great about America. So, in fact, I remember I actually learned things about government too, working some of those minimum wage jobs. My first job was working at an electrical company. I was an assistant for an electrician. I showed up my first day, and I got sent home immediately. And I said, what did I do? I'm sent home already? And I showed up on time. They said, no, we couldn't tell if the boots you had on were approved by OSHA. I didn't know what OSHA was. And so I went home and I figured out it was a federal agency that said that they needed to be OSHA approved. So I went out and bought some that were OSHA approved. But that cost me my whole first week's paycheck to do that. So I learned a lesson about government. This was supposed to protect me I don't think I was any safer as a result, but I was definitely a little bit poorer as a result. And so we continued to work hard, put ourselves in a position because we believed in the American dream. Well, the country is in a bad state. I don't think American decline is inevitable. I think it's a choice that we as Americans will be making over these next few months. And I'm running for president because I think we have an opportunity to choose a better path, to choose a better course, and to reverse the decline. We need to restore sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions. Truth must be our foundation, and common sense can no longer be an uncommon virtue. I can tell you in Florida, we've shown the way. We put facts over fear. We chose education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. We held the line when freedom itself hung in the balance. We refused to let our state descend into some type of Faucian dystopia where people's livelihoods were destroyed and their freedoms were curtailed. No, we lifted people up. We protected people's jobs and businesses and rights and made sure our kids could be in school in person. In short, we chose freedom over Fauciism, and we are better off as a result. Now, when you're in an elected position, an executive position like governor or president, you obviously got to be right on the policy. I mean, we see Joe, Uncle Joe, missing the mark on every policy. It's been a disaster. But being right on policy is necessary. It's not sufficient. You also have to be a leader. And there are times when you're called upon to exercise leadership. And so when COVID was raging, when Florida saw fit to follow a different course, I had to buck the media, the left, the bureaucrats, Fauci, even some Republicans, to do what I think was right. That was not cost-free. I faced a lot of incoming. I faced a lot of attacks, more attacks than any governor has ever faced, probably in the modern history of our country. I had supporters telling me, man, I know you believe you're doing what's right, but you're getting killed, and you're not going to be long for this world politically, so you may want to just reverse course here. But you know, leadership is about doing what is right, even in the face of intense criticism and opposition. It's about being willing to stand all alone if you need to stand up for the people that you need to look after. And I just had to tell myself, I as a leader have to be more concerned with protecting the jobs of the people that I represent than I do with protecting my own political hide. And so I didn't know how it was going to work out politically. Let the chips fall where they may, but I'm doing what I think is right, and I'm going to be able to look in the mirror knowing that I did the right things for the right reasons. And lo and behold, when people see that you're fighting for them under difficult circumstances, man, they have your back as a result of that. It's easy to take the right positions when it's popular. It's harder when you have to do that in the face of a lot of significant headwinds. And that's exactly what we did in Florida. And if we had not stood up when we did, I think this country would have ended up on rolling lockdowns for 2 years, and this country would be way worse off than it is as a result. Leadership, though, is not about entertainment. It's not about building a brand. It's not about virtue signaling. Leadership is about producing results. And in the state of Florida, I'm proud to say we have produced results that are second to none. We are, of course, the nation's fastest growing state, highest net in-migration of any state every year since I've been governor, ranked #1 in economic freedom, ranked #1 in education now by U.S. News and World Report, ranked #1 in education freedom, ranked #1 in parental involvement in education, which is very important, a 50-year low in our crime rate, and no state income tax. Y'all should try that sometime in South Carolina. I'll tell you, you'll like it. We lean in on issues in Florida. You know, as a leader, if you're in elected office, Some people just don't want to get involved in issues. They only make decisions when they actually absolutely have to, because every decision you make, some people will like it and some people will not. And so if all you're trying to do is minimize the people who get dissatisfied with something you do, the best way to do it is just to never do anything. Be a potted plant. Enjoy the trappings of office. That's not leadership. Leadership is going on offense. Leadership is making sure that you're leaning in on the issues that matter. And in Florida, we have done that. We have signed legislation banning land purchases by the Chinese Communist Party in our state. No farmland, nothing. We have also enacted legislation to kneecap ESG in the state of Florida. No ESG in pension, no social credit scores, no woke banking discriminating against conservatives or Christians, not in the state of Florida. We enacted the Heartbeat Bill, the strongest pro-life bill in modern Florida history. When we got hit with Hurricane Ian in Southwest Florida, almost a Category 5 storm, it did a lot of damage, but one of the things it did, it knocked out 2 bridges, one to Pine Island and then the causeway to Sanibel. It severed in 3 locations. And these were not state bridges under my control or my government's control. And the local governments were telling people it's going to be 6 months, you better get off these islands because it's going to take a long time to repair that. So the residents came to me and say, Governor, can you help? And, you know, this is another instance. Some people wouldn't want to get involved in that because if you get involved in it, it doesn't go well, then they're going to blame you, right? But no, I'm going to help. So I said, of course I'm going to help. Tell me what we need to do. We need access to the islands. I was like, okay. So I got my guys together and I said, no bureaucracy, no red tape, and no excuses. I'm not waiting 6 months. I want those bridges restored. And so the Pine Island project we took over, didn't take 6 months. We reopened the bridge in 3 days. Sanibel took us 2 weeks. I'm just saying. And I've offered to President Biden, I'll send my Florida builders to the southern border to build the border wall. Let's do it. Let's get it done. But it's a lesson that there's always going to be ways where you can say you can't do something. You know, the job of a leader is to figure out a way that you can do something. We got it done for Ian, and we'll get it done for our country. We've enacted $2.7 billion in tax relief just this past year, including permanent exclusion of sales tax on all baby items, diapers, wipes, cribs, strollers, you name it. You're raising babies tax-free in the state of Florida now. Now, my wife and I have a 6, a 5, and a 3-year-old at home, so we've missed that boat. She asked me when I signed the bill, why didn't you do that in 2019 when we would have been, well, we're trying to combat Bidenflation, doing the best we can. So we're happy with that. We have universal school choice in Florida. Parents have the right to send their kid to the school of their choice. We've been able to appoint 7 conservative justices to the Florida Supreme Court. I had inherited the most liberal Supreme Court in the country. Now it is the most conservative Supreme Court in the country. We've stood up for the Second Amendment by enacting constitutional carry legislation. We're tough on crime, and we've done things like ensure that these criminals have to post bail. No free get out of jail free. Fentanyl dealers are going to go to jail for a long time, and we've even authorized the death penalty for pedophiles in Florida. And we're not defunding the police. We're going to support the police. We're supporting the people that wear the uniform, and we've given bonuses. And when you come to Florida from another state, we give you a $5,000 signing bonus because we know how important it is. Florida's also recognized the menace posed by left-wing prosecutors who get elected, oftentimes funded by people like George Soros, and they get into office and they say, we are not going to enforce a lot of laws that we don't like. So they let criminals get away with committing crimes with no punishment. It causes crime rate to go up. It causes the communities to be hollow out. It's a threat to a functioning society. And so when we had one of those prosecutors in Florida that said there were laws in Florida that he wasn't going to enforce, I removed him from his post. He is gone. We've taken strong action to combat illegal immigration, including banning sanctuary cities, cracking down on smuggling of illegal aliens, sending National Guard to the southern border, and even sending illegal aliens to beautiful Martha's Vineyard. We have protected Floridians against the imposition of a central bank digital currency. If you don't know what that is, they're going to try to do this. Not when I'm president, they're not, but they're trying to do it now. You're not going to have financial privacy or freedom if they get away with it. We won't let them get away with it. And in Florida, we're blocking. We're the first state in the country to eliminate DEI from our public universities. They say it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, but in reality, it's an ideological agenda that they're trying to jam down people's throats. DEI, as it's practiced, really means discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, and that has no place in our public institutions. Florida has stood up for election integrity. We have banned ballot harvesting in the state. We have banned Zuckerbucks in the state. And we ensure the use of voter ID, not just in-person voting, but if you want an absentee ballot, you must show voter ID for that as well. We have protected Floridians against the imposition of this World Health Organization lockdown treaty that Biden is trying to impose on our country. He's not going to get it ratified by the Senate like the Constitution requires, so we're nixing any attempt to impose that on Floridians. They want to institutionalize and internationalize lockdowns, and we can never let that happen in our country ever again. We've enacted the strongest protection for medical freedom in this country. No vaccine passports, no COVID shot mandates, MNRA mandates, emergency use shots, no gain of function research in Florida. But of all the things that we do, one of the things I'm most passionate about is the issue of education. Because I see that issue not just through the lens of an elected official, but also through the lens of a dad, of a 6'5" and a 3-year-old. And I just believe, and my wife believes, that the purpose of our schools is to educate kids, not to indoctrinate kids. The schools, parents have the fundamental right to direct the education and upbringing of their kids. Schools and the school system serves a purpose. It supports the community, but it does not supersede the rights of the parents. And in Florida, we've made that clear in our laws. We've enacted curriculum transparency legislation so that every parent in Florida has a right to inspect the curriculum that's being used in their kid's school. And you would think that, of course, parents should know what's being taught, but there's a lot of people that want to lock the parents out. They don't want the parents involved. Why do they not want the parents involved? Look, as a teacher, the more the parent is involved, the better the student is going to do. The hardest students to reach are the ones where the parents aren't involved and don't care about their performance. So the only reason you would want the parents not involved is if you think that the parents represent an impediment to you imposing your agenda on their kids. So we have the parents involved. We know it's important. So what happens is, and this is sad that this is the case, there is smut in the schools now. There wasn't when I was growing up, but there is now, and so parents now in Florida can blow the whistle on this. So if in their fifth graders' library there is a book with pornographic images, they can say, wait a minute, that's not age appropriate, and so, and it's not, and the schools will remove. Now the media will try to tell you that that is equivalent to, quote, banning books. But first of all, any adult can get any of these books. Nothing's banned in Florida, but you have to make a decision how to curate books in a library or a classroom. You could have a book on George Washington. There's 50 other books you could have. Does that mean you're banning the other 50 because you're not having? Of course not. So you have to make judgments about what's appropriate, and this stuff is not appropriate. So we did a press conference, and we called it Exposing the Media's Book Ban Hoax. And before I talked, before the parents talked, we played a video that just showed the images of what the parents objected to. The news stations covering that press conference had to cut their feeds because they said it was too graphic to show. Well, if it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, how is it okay for a 10-year-old school child? In Florida, we have eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. We're not teaching kids to hate our country or to hate each other based on their race. Instead, we're putting a renewed emphasis on teaching American civics and teaching about our Constitution and our nation's founding principles, and that the idea that our rights are endowed by our Creator, not by the government, and making sure people understand why people have been willing to fight and die for this country, because all the kids that come out of our school system, they're going to go 100 different ways in their life, but all of them will be citizens of this republic. And we have to graduate these kids with a foundation so that they're not listless vessels as citizens, and they actually have an appreciation for the enduring principles that make us unique as a country. So we're making progress in Florida on that. We've also drawn a very clear line in the sand. It's inappropriate in schools for a teacher to instruct a student that they were born in the wrong body or that their gender was a choice. No gender ideology in the schools. And when we did that, parents in Florida were so thankful. And this is not just Republicans. I mean, parents across the political spectrum, they want education focused on true education. They don't want this stuff injected, particularly in these elementary school classrooms, and so they were very happy. Now, the left was not happy with us. The media was not happy with us. We also had a company in Central Florida that some of you may have heard of that wasn't happy with us. But you know, as governor, I'm there to defend the people of my state. I am not going to subcontract my leadership out to a woke corporation based in California. And so Disney could say what it wants. And I know they're the 800-pound gorilla for many decades in Florida, and they get what they want, but the sexualization of children is wrong. It's wrong when it's done in a school curriculum, and it's wrong when it's done in children's programming, which is what they're trying to do. And so we stood up for what was right. And we also, we reevaluated. They had a ridiculous arrangement in Florida where they controlled their own government for 50, 60 years. They were exempt from laws, major tax breaks. No one else enjoyed that. Basically joined at the hip with the state of Florida. But look, we couldn't be joined at the hip with a company that's going in the direction of the sexualization of minors. And so we ended Disney's self-governing status in the state of Florida. Now, there's some of these Republicans that are attacking me for standing up to Disney. Can you believe that? Here's all I'll say. We oppose the sexualization of children. We will do battle with anybody that seeks to rob them of their innocence. And on those principles, there will be no compromise. We will never back down. And we've also stood up to protect women's sports. And Riley is a remarkable young woman, has had a great career and done so many great things. I can tell you, if you get to know her, this is somebody that has their head on straight, and she's got a great set of values that guide her life, and we're honored to have her support. And part of the reason why we feel strongly about women's sports, look, my wife and I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old daughter in addition to a 5-year-old son. Girls and women athletes deserve the right to compete with integrity and with fairness. And these are great opportunities for them. Their competition shouldn't be corrupted by political ideology. And it's not fair to rob them of opportunities. But there's also the larger issue at play that when you have someone swimming on the men's team for 3 years, and then that swimmer switches to the women's team, and the NCAA crowns that swimmer the women's national championship, when they ask us to recognize that, they're asking us to be complicit in a lie. And that I refuse to do. I will not tell that lie. And it's sad that we even have to discuss this, but it is wrong for physicians to perform sex change operations on minor children. And in the state of Florida, we recognize that for what it is. It is mutilation, and you will lose your medical license and go to jail if you do it. So we are proud to stand to protect our children. It's sad that we've had to do so much. And, you know, it used to be the children were off limits, right? Now we've got a lot of negative forces doing down. So we've done that in Florida. My wife has been a big part of doing that. You know, we're very family focused in Florida. We did not bring our kids on this, but they will be up in South Carolina soon, so don't worry. We take our responsibilities as parents very seriously and are sympathetic to what parents are going through in this day and age, because it's hard to raise kids. It's hard to raise kids with these devices that everybody has and social media and all the influences that they're trying to do. So for the parents of this country, just know my wife and I, we've got your back. We're going to fight for you. Don't worry. And before we do that, I want to bring up my better half. So she's back there somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, a graduate of the College of Charleston, and our nation's best First Lady,
well, first of all, how excited are you to vote for Ron DeSantis for President of the United States, right? Standing up for parents. I mean, it's an honor to be back in South Carolina, College of Charleston graduate. By the way, my sister and brother-in-law, C-17 pilots, they were stationed up in North Charleston. My dad was at MUSC, so for a while there, we were all back in South Carolina, so it's good to be back home. You know, I'm excited to be here for a lot of reasons, obviously advocating for the better half, but I'm also happy to talk to somebody older than the age of 5. I'm not gonna lie. We have a lot of conversations with the little one that seem like hamster in a wheel kind of conversations where they go on and on. You know, but they were talking, Riley, by the way, who's a great advocate for women's sports, and obviously you've got some great legislators here who have passed some wonderful legislation, as did the governor down in Florida. You know, it's funny, our kids are starting to play sports a little bit. This morning, the governor and I were FaceTiming with our 3 kids, and they were in the midst of swim lessons. I don't think they're up to Riley's stature yet. They were fighting over unicorn goggles, but it's okay. At least they're making their way across the pool. Our daughter, our 3-year-old Mamie, by the way, so she's the littlest. She's 3. Then you have Mason, who's 4, and then Mason, now he's 5, and Madison is 6. So Mamie has started to play softball. But, you know, for a 3-year-old, she hasn't quite grasped the rules yet of the sport. So she hits the ball, and instead of running to first, she runs to third, which is great. And then when she gets there, she starts building sandcastles. So it's baby steps. We're not on Riley's level yet, but hopefully we'll get there. But, I mean, it's a privilege to be able to raise young kids in the governor's residence. And really, we're the first family in about 50 years to have small children. Mamie was the first baby born to a sitting governor in more than 50 years. And so it's always an adventure. So I'm so proud of everything that the governor has accomplished, but here's why it matters. Because so often you see people who run for office, they say they're going to do all these wonderful things, and then they get up to places like Washington, D.C., and they go rogue. They go native. They forget why they're there. They become these listless vessels that are just bending in the wind. They're putting their finger in the air to try to take polls to see which direction that they need to go. They're more interested in politics, and they never deliver the accomplishments that the people expect them to deliver upon. But that is not true, as you've seen with this governor. When he says he is going to do something, bank on it, he gets it done. And how refreshing is that for politicians? You know, and the other thing I love about this guy, too, is that he's not afraid to pick on a fight. He's not afraid when the media comes after him. He's not afraid when the left comes after him, because he gets attacked. I don't know if you've turned on the news any time as of recent, and it seems like he's getting attacked from every direction. But one thing I can tell you, and I feel like I have the responsibility to come out here and say this, because I see him in front of the cameras, and I see him at home behind the cameras, and I see him with his kids, 6, 5, and 3. He never changes. He never wavers. He never backed down. He always, always stands up for what's right. He does not take the path of least resistance. He doesn't cower. And it really is refreshing to see that somebody is standing up for what is right, standing up for the rights, liberties, livelihoods, and happiness of the people that he was voted to represent. And that was true in spades when you saw COVID. I can tell you stories of moms in the midst of COVID, single moms coming up to me with tears in their eyes because they didn't know how they were going to be able to put food on the table for their kids. They didn't know whether their children were going to be able to get an education, to be able to live up to their God-given potential. But they were so happy that the governor was the one who held the line for them. They didn't have the voice to be able to go out and advocate their position, but they knew that he was fighting for them and that he had their back. And for that, I am forever proud of everything he's done. And so at the end of the day, we need to protect the idea of America. We need to ensure that our children, who are currently destroying the house, but it's okay because Grandma's there, so our children, by the way, coloring on the dining room table with permanent markers. When he's signing all this legislation, he brings home all of these Sharpies with him, and the other day we had the little one, 3-year-old, and so but it's fine. We'll get through it. But we're trying to protect and defend America for our children, for your children, for your grandchildren, so that they can live up to their God-given potential in the greatest country in the world. And when he gets elected President of the United States, we are going to show the world that the best of America is yet to come, and you're going to make that happen. God bless you.
All right. You know, when we first moved into the governor's residence in 2019, we had a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old, and we were mindful of whatever damage they may have wrought. And I just asked, do we have to put down a security deposit to move in? And we didn't. But I will tell you this, after like a month or two, there's a living room that we use. There was this like nice rug. And all of a sudden, like the people that run the governor's mansion just kind of rolled it up and got it out of there because I think they knew it would not be long for this world with our kids in there. But we thank the First Lady for all she's done. She's really been remarkable across a wide variety of ways, obviously as a wife and my best friend, but also as a mother. But what she's done for the state of Florida, she's done an incredible job across a wide range of issues. So here's the deal. What we've done in Florida shows us that we should have some hope for this country. It can be done. I got elected by 32,000 votes in 2018. My state was considered a perfectly divided swing state, 1-point races in either direction. People told me to not rock the boat when I got in because I might upset this delicate political balance and help the Democrats. Of course, I rejected that advice and I went headstrong in and we were bold. But Fast forward 4 years later, we didn't win by 32,000 votes. We won by over 1.5 million votes. Largest Republican gubernatorial victory in the history of the state of Florida. We won independents by 18%. We won over 60% of Hispanics. We won women by 8%. We even won urban areas like Miami-Dade County, 2.8 million people in that county alone. And Hillary had won it by 30 points in 2016. We not only won it, we won it by double digits as a Republican. And so, but it's not just about me. When you're leading a ticket, you have a responsibility to help the other candidates who are running. And so we did that, and we now have super majorities in the Florida legislature. We helped elect 4 additional Republicans to the U.S. Congress, and we probably wouldn't have the majority if that hadn't happened. And then we also helped elect 29 new conservative school board members throughout the state of Florida, which is very important. And for the first time since Reconstruction, there is not a single solitary Democrat elected in statewide office in the Sunshine State. That is what you call winning, and winning big. And that's what we need to do nationally again. The other thing Florida's experience should show you, and my wife mentioned it, I don't sit here and puff smoke. If I say something, it means I've thought about it, and it means I'm going to act on it. So if I tell you I'm going to do something, you can take it to the bank. When I get in there, we're doing it. And there's not anything we're not going to follow through on. And so I can pledge to you as president, we're going to be an energetic executive. We're going to be on offense. We're going to take on these issues head on. We are going to reverse Biden's disastrous economic policies that are causing people to have a lower standard of living. Our dollar is 20% almost less a value than it was 4 or 5 years ago. We need to have an economy focused on small businesses, not big businesses. These big businesses made a fortune during COVID. The small businesses were getting hammered. That's got to be the focus of our economy. We also have to have fiscal sanity in this country. We're $31 trillion in debt, for crying out loud. And you just had this debt deal in Washington. Our country was going broke before that deal, and it's still going broke after that deal. They're greenlighting $4 trillion in additional debt for Biden to take him through the rest of his presidency, locking in COVID-era levels of spending, which are grossly inflated. And even those 87,000 new IRS agents that we've been railing about as Republicans, they're only reducing that by 2%. So this is not a deal that is saving this country. This is a deal that's more of the same. Look, in Florida, we run budget surpluses. We have a $1.2 trillion economy in Florida. It would be the 13th largest economy in the world if we were a separate country. And yet, $1.2 trillion economy, our state debt is only $17 billion. That's the second lowest per capita debt in the entire United States. So don't tell me these things can't be managed better. We also need, if we want to help our economy, we need to expand American energy production here at home. Open it up. Reverse Biden's policies. He wants to turn us into Germany or California. It's not going to work. We also need to have an economy that is not dependent on the Chinese Communist Party. Stop sending things to China. Make more stuff here in the United States. You know, as a Republican, I've been hearing about the southern border for probably my entire adult life. And I've heard a lot of rhetoric over the years, and here's what I can say. As president, I will be the one to finally bring this issue to a conclusion. We are going to shut the border down. We're going to build a border wall. We're going to end mass migration to the United States. And we are going to hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable for the carnage that they've unleashed on this country with the fentanyl. We are going to usher in a reckoning about the federal government's disastrous COVID-19 policies, the lockdowns, the school closures, the restrictions, the vax mandates, the whole shebang. We're going to bring about accountability for the people that perpetrated those bad policies, because we have to make sure that it can never happen again in these United States. We understand that woke ideology represents a war on truth itself, and so as president, we will wage a war on the woke. We will fight the woke in schools. We will fight the woke in the corporations. We'll fight the woke in the halls of Congress. We will never surrender to the woke mob. We are going to leave woke ideology in the dustbin of history where it belongs. As Commander-in-Chief, we will on day one move to revitalize our nation's military. I'm somebody that served in the U.S. Navy, served a tour in Iraq, and at the time, this is after 9/11, I had put myself in a position working a lot of those minimum wage jobs to have a lot of opportunities because I had acquired education credentials. I could have made a lot of money. But I made the decision to serve because I felt that when the country needed people to step up, I shouldn't rely on everyone else to do it. And so I wanted to do my part, however small that was, I wanted to serve. And so I would have made a lot more money had I not done that. But I'll tell you this, when you serve, when you're able to wear the cloth of your country, when you're able to serve alongside other patriots, and when you're serving a cause greater than yourself, well, that's a satisfaction that money just can't buy. And so I'm proud of the service. I'm proud of all of your service who serve. I know we have a lot of Marines in the house because I ran into a few of them. So thank you. It's something that you should be proud of, to have served in our nation's military. And yet it pains me to have veterans come up to me now and say they would not want to see their kids or their grandkids joining the U.S. military because of everything that's going on. They're imposing a political agenda on the military, woke ideology, all these gender ideology, all these things. And what are they doing when what's the effect of that? They are driving warriors away. Recruiting is low. Morale is low. So we're going to go in on day one. We're going to take all that Biden nonsense and we're ripping it out by the roots. And we are going to restore this nation's military to its proper glory. And we need a strong military. We got China, we got threats. We got to be able to project that power, and we'll do it. We'll get it done. As president, I will have a firm recognition that our constitutional system is woefully out of whack. The Founding Fathers designed a system with 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. They did not design a 4th branch of government. They did not design an administrative state. They did not design a so-called deep state. And we are going to go back, we are going to go about the work, very difficult work, of reconstitutionalizing the federal government. We're going to go in on day one. You'll have a new FBI director on day one. You know that. Not every candidate can say that. But when you have weaponized government, when you have FBI going to school board meetings to potentially surveil parents who are just concerned about things like CRT and mask mandates, when you have a pro-lifer protester who has FBI agents swarm, the home, when you see this uneven application of justice, just understand, the Founding Fathers would have predicted that. If there's no constitutional accountability, and if these agencies are allowed to accumulate power without any checks and balances, human nature tells you that power will be abused. So they would have predicted exactly what's happening here. So what we need is a president who is disciplined, a president who is focused, a president who's going to be unrelenting on breaking up this power that has accumulated over all these years. You can't do it in 24 hours. Someone says they can do it in 6 months. That is not true. This is something that is going to be trench warfare day after day after day, but it needs to be done because I think the future of constitutional government hangs in the balance. We cannot continue to have most of the major decisions in this country that affect our society or our economy decided not by your elected representatives, but by nameless, faceless bureaucrats issuing regulations. No economic or social transformation without representation. And we need to restore that sense of the Constitution, and we need to return this government to its rightful owners, we, the American people. And you can't do that. You're not going to be able to get that done if you don't have the humility as a leader to understand that you can't do it alone. Yeah, you can make the best decisions, you can have the best policies. If you don't have a cadre of people serving in your administration who share the vision, who are willing to put the vision and the mission ahead of their own personal interests, and who are going to understand that there are going to be some sacrifices here because they're going to face blowback too if they're going in and doing the right thing. If you don't have that, then none of this is going to amount to very much. And so I'm very aware of the need to have good personnel in an administration. We've done that in Florida. I mean, you look at some of the people we have. Go look up my Surgeon General, Joe Latipo. He's like the anti-Fauci. He's standing up against all this crazy stuff, and he's doing what's right. Now, he gets hit because of that. So you need people who just understand the name of the game. So, for example, Attorney General. You can't have an Attorney General that doesn't have a backbone. You must have a spine of steel when you go into that job, because if you're doing what needs to be done to bring accountability to agencies like the DOJ and the FBI, the media is not going to like that. The left is not going to like that, and they're going to smear you. They're going to attack you. So you either know that and you're fine with it, and if it's something that's going to bother you, you're not going to be tough enough to do the job. I'll tell my Surgeon General, Joe, I'll say, you know, I haven't followed what you've been doing lately, but I see the media is attacking you, so you must be on the right track if that's what they're doing. But the personnel is not just who's at the top as like Attorney General. It's also all the people, thousands of people who fill all these positions. And you can't just recycle people from Washington, D.C. You got to get people from outside of D.C., inspire them to put their lives on hold in their community, move to the nation's capital, and serve in the administration for 2, 4, 6, 8 years, whatever it takes to get the job done. You know, this bureaucracy for too long has imposed its will on us. It's about time we impose our will on it. And it's going to be a lot more stuff that we're going to do. We look forward to rolling out a lot of really exciting proposals, and I think the sky's the limit, but only if you win the election. And there's no substitute for victory. And this party of ours has developed a culture of losing over recent years. I look at this debt deal, as bad as it was, but I think to myself, you know, we have 49 Republican senators. We should have 55 Republican senators right now. We've given away some of these elections for no reason. So we need to get winning again. But here's the thing. In 2024, we're not getting a mulligan on this one, okay? We got to get it right because the stakes couldn't be higher. If the Democrats are able to sweep into power, they will try to pack the U.S. Supreme Court with liberal justices. They will try to abolish the Electoral College. They will try to make Washington, D.C. a state, so they get 2 additional Democrat senators. And they will try to eliminate voter ID in every jurisdiction in this country and mandate that every jurisdiction have ballot harvesting. That's not an agenda that's speaking to the kitchen table concerns of the average American family. It's an agenda where they're trying to ensconce themselves in power for a generation. And if they're successful in doing that, the damage will be incalculable and likely irreversible. President Reagan used to say, no, it's tough. President Reagan used to say, freedom's only one generation away from extinction. It's not passed along in the bloodstream. You got to fight for it and cultivate it. I used to think that was an exaggeration because I thought freedom was just in America's DNA. Yes, you could have maybe some liberals get in and raise your taxes and do things that aren't good, but could we really see our freedoms taken away from us in our lifetime? Well, if you've lived through the last 4 or 5 years, you realize how fragile freedom is. We had a federal government that was trying to prevent people from earning a living if they didn't take a COVID-19 vax under emergency use, no less. And so that is raw power being exercised against the American people that I would not have contemplated even 5 or 6 years ago. And our founding fathers understood this. When Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, he was asked, "What did you give us, Dr. Franklin, a republic or a monarchy?" He said, "A republic if you can keep it." Because they understood we had a responsibility to be stewards of the heritage of freedom. And I'm motivated to do this. And look, I'm willing to take the arrows. That's fine. I'll do it. And I'm motivated to do it because I think that, yes, it's an inflection point for our country. I think if we fail in 24, the idea we're going to come back 4 years later and fix this, I think that's a pipe dream. I look at my kids and eventually, hopefully, we'll have grandkids someday. Same with you, kids and grandkids. We want a free country for them. But I'm also motivated by a sense of obligation to the people that have come before us. We just came out of Memorial Day, and I used to fly up to Washington, D.C., and there was a particular flight path you could take going into Reagan Airport that took you flush parallel to the National Mall. So that if you looked out the left side of the plane, you would see panoramic views right up close of our nation's monuments like the Lincoln Memorial, the Reflecting Pool, the Washington Monument, and even perched up on the hill in the distance, the U.S. Capitol building. A beautiful sight, and it's inspiring to see that kind of up close in person from the air because you feel proud to be an American. You see those values and the principles that those monuments represent. But after doing that trip a few times, I realized the best monuments that we have are not out the left side of the plane. Because if you looked out the right side of the plane, you looked over the Potomac River, you saw small monuments, nondescript, orderly arranged over the rolling hills of a place called Arlington National Cemetery. And it occurred to me that you could have the best Declaration of Independence in the world, you could have the best Constitution in the world, but ultimately, if you don't have people when duty calls who are willing to put on that uniform, risk their lives, and indeed give that last full measure of devotion to this country, then none of the ideals and the political leaders, even as great as they are, like George Washington, none of that will amount to very much. And so we owe them a profound debt of gratitude. We're not called upon to offer sacrifices even remotely close to what they do. We do have it in our power, though, to reverse this nation's decline. It's going to require us to carry what George Washington called the torch of the sacred fire of liberty. It requires us to stand firm for the truth. It requires us to be resolute in defense of our enduring American principles that have made us unique amongst the community of nations. And my pledge to you is this: I will fight the good fight, I will finish the race, and I will keep the faith. And if you nominate me as the Republican candidate for president, then you can set your clock to January 20th, 2025 at high noon, because on the west side of the U.S. Capitol building, I'm going to have this left hand on the Bible, I'm going to have this right hand in the air, and we will be sworn in as the 47th President of these United States. No excuses. We will get the job done. God bless you, South Carolina. I'm asking for your vote, and I'm asking for your support. Thank you very much.